is no pain like the pain of a parent who has lost a child, no wound that refuses to heal like the wound of a parent who has had to bury a child. It should never happen. Thank you for joining us for our second town hall on teen violence. I'm Mark Curtis.
And I'm Kariba Devine. Also joining us is 12 News journalist Colleen Sikora. Colleen has been reporting on teen violence all across the valley for more than a year now, and she's going to be standing by in our audience to take some questions. So audience, do not be shy. Colleen is very nice. We do want to hear from you, so just grab her in the commercial breaks and she will take your question for our panelists. Now we have a great group of panelists throughout the evening. All of them have been touched by teen violence in some way, and now all they do is work to make sure that it does not happen to you and your family. So we want to welcome all three of you this evening. First, we'll start with Mark Jacobo. His son Stephen was murdered in November of 2022 on his 18th birthday. We have Greg Gutierrez. His son Jaden was also murdered in 2021, and as of today, no one has been arrested, correct, in your son's murder. And then we also have Larry McGill. He is joining us as well. He is an educator and has also been touched by teen violence several times, in fact.
Greg, I wanted to thank you because you're one of the reasons that we're here. You came to our first town hall on teen violence when we had it in Gilbert, and you stood up and you said, this is my son who was killed in South Phoenix. And it really brought it to light that this isn't a problem that's confined to the East Valley or the West Valley. If we had done it first here and there had been a parent from the East Valley, we'd be doing it in the East Valley. The problem is teen violence itself. And I said a second ago, after Colleen's story, there is no pain like the pain a parent feels when they lose a child. How have you been able to cope and move forward?
It's just something you got to do when you're in this situation. You know, you either sink or you swim in this situation. You know, the support we get from the family and the community is greatly appreciated when we do get it. You know, I got to thank you guys for bringing this to the table. It's very important to my family and, you know, to all our friends, and to the community that we get some type of, I don't know, something got to be done, you know. I don't even know how to put it in words, to be honest. I mean, it's just been the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. Something that I did grow up experiencing. You know, I got a lot of friends that are buried due to gun violence. I don't know. I think that even though we don't got answers to Jaden's case, it's very important that the parents and the children understand that this could be you sitting right here. You know, ain't nothing too much been different in the situation to change it, you know. So I just thought I'd try to come over here and see what we could figure out together, because I can't do nothing alone, you know.
Yeah, and Mark, after your son Stephen was murdered, you started a foundation, and you've been having some really tough conversations with other kids at risk who maybe are caught up already in violence or are on that path. What have you learned from those experiences, and how has it kind of helped you through your grieving process?
I've learned quite a bit as far as starting the foundation is for my son. My son is a very caring, loving son, and he would do anything for anybody, young, old, didn't matter. And for me, my grieving, my healing is to start this foundation, to continue the love that he's always given to everybody, and not only to look at stopping gun violence and putting things in place, but also, I think the actuality is it's starting from the families. We have all these nice communities that we pay all this money, all these playgrounds. You never see anybody outside, and unfortunately, I think as a parent, you got to take accountability. And as far as the Stephen Benito Jacobo Foundation, we're not only bringing awareness, educating, supporting, but also helping out troubled youth as well, mentoring, because to me, I think it's just giving kids guidance, regardless if it's tough love, regardless if it's just bringing them back to reality. What I've learned and my family's learned, that we're not promised tomorrow. Our kids aren't promised tomorrow. I know we can't stop violence, but we could definitely get it under control. and put it to a minimum like it was, because right now it's out of control.
Hopefully tonight we can find some solutions. Larry, when a person signs on to be an educator or a principal, you don't ever expect to bury any of your students. You've had to bury quite a few of your students, and I don't know how you get through that. So, I think I want to get the big question out of the way, and we just touched on it with Mark. Does breaking this cycle begin at home, or does it begin at the schools?
In the perfect world, it would begin at home, and the school would be a great partner. But we're not in a perfect world right now. We have families that are coming to us that are broken and in a bad way. And so the school, we sometimes have to fill in some of those gaps that aren't being met, some of those needs that aren't being met. And so it's very difficult. At South Point, for example, I've been there for 21 years. I've got to know many families and generation after generations, and so I'm constantly trying to break cycles and improve life chances, okay? And so it's a difficult task, but it's got to be a joint effort.
Does it feel overwhelming?
Well, it's very overwhelming to me because I'm all in. Some folks, they go when it's a job. For me, it's all in every day. We have to build these relationships. I want to know every family by the face, by the name, want to know the story. And that's why when things like this happens, it hits home. It's like your own child.
Mm-hmm.
And as a parent, I feel like my kids spend more time at school with their teachers and their peers than they actually do at home, right? So it takes a village. It takes everybody.
Exactly.
As an educator, what should you and other teachers and even other students be looking for signs of someone who maybe is kind of teeter-tottering on going that other direction?
I believe that, number one, relationships. So, we do a meet and greet every day. What's the child's energy like that day?
Okay.
Going out your way to say, hey, we missed you yesterday. Are you okay? Things like that help. You're not
So getting them to open up.
Getting the kids to open up. In a lot of these cases, what folks aren't understanding is that the kids that are at school aren't the ones, in my situation, that I know, they're not doing the shooting, the killing, okay? These kids are coming to better themselves, okay? And so as an educator, you should be able to feel the energy. You know if you have kids that are there, they're bad actors, and you have to do something about it. You just can't stay quiet.
What's the first step, Mark, do you think? Where do we begin this process of not only healing, but being better as a community?
Healing, I'm still learning it, and I'm still going through it till this day. As a community, definitely putting things in place for our kids. But like I said, it's starting with our home. And unfortunately, the economy, we're working a lot harder as parents or just as single parents. But it literally just takes a couple hours a day when you get home from a long day just to ask your kids, how's your day? Because to me, if your kids don't look up to their parents or their siblings, the next people they're gonna look up to is social media, their surroundings, and I think that's where the problem is they're just making horrible choices. I don't think these kids, just like the son that murdered my son, he killed my son, but I don't think he is that bad of a person to have that heart to literally do it. It had to come with just no direction, not knowing how to make the right decision. But unfortunately, he made the wrong decision. He killed my son, and now he has to pay the price.
That's amazing to hear you even say that, though, about the person who took your son away from you.
As a coach, I've coached all my kids, and I've always treated my kids, my team, all the kids that I've coached as my kids. And that's one thing that I've always told their parents. Your kids are not going to be a great ball player, a baseball player. What they learn at practice is what you continue to show them at home. And that's the problem. That's the problem now.
Yeah, Greg, you stood up at our last town hall and you said we need to have another one of these. in Phoenix. What do you hope to take away from today's discussion?
I don't know. I just want to bring my son's case to light because we haven't had nothing. You know, there hasn't been no communication between me and the detectives. I know they're, you know, overloaded with a lot of cases. We watch the news and we see what goes on in our community every day as well. You know, that's what kind of made me show up at the last town hall meeting. Yeah. I think this is a statewide issue for sure. You know, what they protect over there will bleed in. You know, what we got going on over here will bleed in over there if they don't work with us to make it all a safer place overall, I believe. You know, I come from the streets. You know, I was born and raised in the gangs. I participated in a lot of gang activity. You know, nothing I was ever proud of, but I wanted to come out here and just like let these guys know, like, while you're over there trying to impress whoever it is you're trying to impress, you know, you're just making it so hard to get out of the situations you're putting yourself in. You know, every step you take backward, it's hard to move forward. You know, you always get judged for your you know, what you do in life. You know, now that I'm older and I made it to this point, I think I was real lucky in my situation. You know, I got a lot of friends that are probably behind bars watching me right now talk about this, you know, wishing that they were at home with their families and didn't make the decisions that put them there, you know. So that's what brought me out here, just to talk a little bit about my experience and maybe share, you know, some of my story.
The thing that I'm struck by, Caribe, is no parent should have to have a sign, a picture of their child. And as I look around this room, can everyone holding a picture of a loved one who has been a victim of gun violence just hold up their pictures? I see them all over the room tonight. Just hold them up so our viewers at home can see them. This shouldn't be happening. This should not be happening. We're going to try to find some solutions.
That's right, and we want to thank you all, of course, for sharing your experiences. They mean a lot to all of us, and hopefully this will continue the discussion and hopefully find some solutions. So we thank you all. Don't go anywhere. We're going to come back and take some questions for the audience. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to our second town hall here on 12 News, talking about teen violence and looking for possible solutions. We're glad all of you are with us tonight. We want to introduce our next panel of experts here. First of all, Phoenix Police Assistant Chief Sean Connolly. Good to see you, Sean. Paola Jordan, who started the Lalo Boy Foundation to help families get access to mental health care. Her son also, unfortunately, was the victim of suicide after being coached by someone online. And Farah Figner, a mentor and recruiter with New Pathways. Thank you all for being here.
And Sean, we want to start with you, Phoenix PD. How important is it for law enforcement to be connected to our youth, like up close and personal? I know you guys have programs to do just that.
Yeah, and first I just want to both Greg and Mark, who were just on the panel, it's with an incredible, humble and broken heart that I, as a parent personally, we as an organization just want to let you know that we feel you and we understand. And we are relentless in our pursuit of making sure that we find justice. But I really love the conversation here about, and your focus and everybody's focus on getting upstream on some of the things that put us in a position at a certain middle of the night to be engaging like this. And I think for us in the Phoenix Police Department, you know, in 2023, as crime went down, overall violent and property crime, what we did see, because we are engaged, is an incredible spike in juvenile crime in our cities. And so we value immensely this conversation because I think when we wrap our services around what is the most important thing in our communities, and that's the future, this is a collective, and it takes many people coming together. So thank you for this conversation. When we look at the crime plan moving forward, juvenile crime, the role of behavioral health, the role of fentanyl and drugs in our community is at the forefront of what we want to accomplish. And I think we have a whole host of programs in our menu, but I think there's more things to do as it relates to the precise intervention and prevention of trigger pullers and those that have the ability to be shot by those trigger pullers. And it's in this room those answers lie.
Farah, we were talking about trying to find solutions. And there's no easy answer to this, but what do you do at New Pathways to help?
So New Pathways for Youth is an organization that serves teens in the Valley who live in poverty, who've experienced a lot of adversity. And our goal is to provide youth with the resources and the skills that they need so that they can eventually elevate themselves out of their current situation and bring more hope for future generations. We do that by matching all of our youth with volunteer mentors. And mentors are kind, caring adults who can show up consistently and can withhold judgment so that their mentees always have somebody that they can come to. And I always like to point out that the caregivers of our youth, they love their children, but sometimes they're just strapped because of their financial situations and aren't able to provide that consistent care. And so that's where the mentor steps in. And even the parents of our youth who might be incarcerated or might have addiction issues, they also love their children and really appreciate the fact that we can bring those adults into the lives of these youth and show them that there is so much more to life than what they see in their neighborhoods, and also to let them know that they're worthy and they're valuable and they deserve it.
In a lot of ways, it really is a vicious cycle because parents don't have the means or the time. There's no handbook for parenting, and so it sounds like maybe you can bridge that gap in a lot of instances.
Yeah, that's the goal, is to bridge that gap. And another thing that we do with our youth, and I'd like to say hi to Marcelino, who's my mentee in the audience, is that we provide wraparound services in the sense that we provide resources for the families when there's gaps. And also, we elevate our youth with career readiness opportunities, and then also with personal development and character development curriculum. And side by side with the mentors, they're able to really empower themselves. And when youth are empowered, then they're able to make better decisions. And maybe that decision is to never pick up a gun. Maybe that decision is to walk away when those situations happen. Maybe that decision is to get in your car and call your mentor. But it's so important just to have that, feel that self-worth. And a lot of times, you know, the research shows that the number one way to intervene is to introduce a relationship with a caring and kind adult, which I really appreciated the educator on the previous panel mentioning.
And Paola, when we're talking about solutions, you think that social media companies should be held accountable. Your son took his life at the direction of someone that he was communicating with over the internet.
Absolutely. What had happened was he was on Reddit, and I know you guys were involved to investigate it, but Reddit would not release the information. But years later, I haven't compared it, but they did change the rules and so forth, because I didn't have any justice for my son. So thanks to Channel 12 News, they followed our case, and we were able to change a law that makes it manslaughter. This adult predator had influence over my son, who was 17, just robbed him of his life. But they're not equipped to make decisions on their own. They don't think clearly. And so this person basically instructed him how to kill himself with a gun, which he's not had experience with a gun before.
With no repercussion, because it's not a national law. Right now, it's just at the state level, right?
That's correct. So that was 2 years ago in 2021, and our goal, and I will need a committee, but we want to go federal. It should be in every single state. I was able to find 9 other countries, and the U.S. wasn't one of them. So thankfully, hands down, everybody was on board with the law. And it's just like everybody's saying, it's just, it takes a little bit of everyone. This is a village. And what's happening, what we do with Lala Boy Foundation, we started the foundation after we lost our son. It takes bravery to say, I need help. But we have the one that is the offender. We also have the victim. Lala Boy Foundation does not discriminate. We're there to serve the families that don't have the financial means to get the counseling support kids need. I know that I've come a long way from compound trauma, But counseling wasn't talked about back then. But I could tell you, coming from that, and now it's almost 5 years in my grief, it's still a process. But these kids, you adults, you family, community, you deserve to have that support. And that's why we work really hard, because we want to make sure that it's no longer a barrier. And the application process is really easy. But there's some days are heavier, but when I can call my daughter and say, you know what, we saved one today. And that helps me get out of bed. But we shouldn't be burying our kids.
So these channels are available for our kids. We just need to get them to go. We need that horse to get to the trough and drink, because the water is there and available, right?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that those that are the offenders, whoever they may be, if you're hearing this, be brave and just ask for help, because you know what? You don't have to stay stuck there, and everybody comes from circumstance, and you're cared for right where you're at. So.
All right. Well, we want to thank you all for sharing your comments with us this evening. And don't go anywhere. Our 12 News Town Hall on teen violence, live from the Cesar Chavez Community Center in South Phoenix, continues right after the break. And this very important conversation on teen violence continues here live at the Cesar Chavez Community Center. I want to introduce our next group of panelists. We have Pastor Andre Miller from the New Beginnings Church in Mesa, and Elisa Tarkington from Phoenix Union High School District. So we'll be talking to both of you about what you're doing in the community already and what's working. So first we're going to take a question, though, from our audience.
One of the nice things about a town hall situation is that we not only talk to panelists, but we hear from the folks who've taken time out of their day to come down here to Cesar Chavez Community Center to confront and talk about this problem, and that's how you come up with solutions. Let's go to Colleen Sikora, who's got a question.
And Joanna is brave enough to be our first one. Thank you, Joanna. You're with
welcome.
the Diversity Leadership Alliance, but you're also a mom of a teen. Tell me about why you came down here and your question for our panelists.
Well, you know, I came down here because as I think about the idea of, you know, teen violence, it hits close to home. I have a 16-year-old that leaves every day, soon to be 17, and I also have a son that's at ASU. And I think oftentimes we don't give them enough credit for wanting to, you know, to drive their own lives and being responsible. They have a lot more knowledge than we know. And I think we don't give them credit for that, you know? So my question really is around this idea of, it is clear that this issue is systemic. That's the one thing we can all, it is embedded into several systems, from education to healthcare to, so at some point, where do we get all of those systems together to have this true wraparound? Because right now it's happening in silos in different places, and while it's available, it's hard to tell someone just go get the services. I think we need to push it out instead of trying to push them in.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Pastor Andre, I mean, you're working, you know, you're in the faith, you're working with schools, you're working with law enforcement. So to her question, how do you do that?
So it has to be a continual conversation, and it has to be a true effort. Like she said, people often won't come to you when they need help. We have to make sure that we're going out to the communities and having these conversations. And so in some of the schools, we've tried to push to make sure they had No Place for Hate, that's sponsored through ADL. And this is a program that we had to go to the schools and say, hey, you need to have this, because it becomes an outreach apparatus where kids have a safe space and a place to have a conversation and also feel that they are represented and that they're safe. And so these are things that we need to make sure we're doing in schools. And so to her point, it is very imperative that we all work together. The last town hall, I said that it shouldn't have been just Preston Lord that prompted all of us to have this conversation, right? Yeah. Because this has been happening in Black and brown communities forever. Right. So now that we're at this place, we need to make sure that we're having this conversation for real and not just for surface, but truly for real, to make sure these things don't continue to happen. No parent, it's unnatural for a parent to bury their child. Yeah. That should never happen.
Alyssa, it probably has never been tougher to be a teenager. All the pressure that these teens feel to fit in, to be popular, not only with their friends, but on social media. And some of them are striving for their 5 minutes of fame on social media, and sometimes they make the wrong choices to fit in and to be popular and to say, I did that. So I'm one of the cool kids now. What are you all doing in the Phoenix Union District to help these kids?
So I think, so thank you for that question. So I think that we've heard that tonight. I think first of all, just to make sure that they're seen. So making sure that, you know, we know their names, we know their family and their needs, and connect them. So we talk about something in Phoenix Union called student connectedness, connecting students again to a club, a sport, an activity, making sure that they feel like they have, you know, a sense of belonging, so that they don't have to, you know, go seek that attention in other ways, but they're also teenagers. So we talk about the adolescent brain and education with teachers all of the time. And so they're going to make those mistakes. And so really upfront doing that prevention work and educating about, you know, that can get you in a world of trouble depending on how far you go. But I think there's two sides of it, hurting themselves by doing that, and then of course using those platforms that we heard tonight, so sad from one of our parents, that could hurt others.
If you could tell parents who are watching tonight one thing that they can do to at least give their kids a chance when they get into this environment in school where there are so many voices coming at them from different directions, some good and some bad, what would you say?
You know, just to really, I think again, we heard this from a father tonight, to talk to them, right? To listen to them, and then just continue to, you know, let them have that space to speak. My instinct is to continue to ask, well, you know, why do you think that happened? Although I know with teenagers, if you push them too hard, sometimes they can shut down.
Yeah.
But when they know it's in the spirit of love, that someone's listening to them and that you want to hear their opinions and thoughts, it opens everything up for that further discussion. And so that even to the point where that if a parent learns something that's of concern, that's where that partnership with both community and with school comes into place. Let's communicate together to really get down to the bottom and make sure that we're supporting them.
Yeah, and Andre, what has worked for you getting directly to some of these teens? Because as she mentioned, it's kind of tough, right? They think they know it all at this point. They think, you know, the parents aren't cool anymore. So how are you connecting directly with them? And is it working?
I think it is, and not to get biblical, but I am a pastor, right? Paul said, I became all things to all men that I might win some. And so when you understand that, that means that I have to make sure I am versed in how young people talk.
Yes.
I'm versed in how young people think. Although it may not be normal, it's their social norms, right? So we got to make sure that we are not closed off and in a silo, like one of the ladies said, in a silo and not understanding what's happening with our young people. Young people are way more advanced. They get more information than we get, and they get it quicker than we do, right? So we got to make sure that we are trying to stay ahead of that, because that's the society that we live in, and if we don't, we'll continue to lose our children. There's a 2022 stat that said there's about 1.1 million students in the education system here, right? There were over 100,000 kids that have reported teen violence and bullying in schools. This room should have been standing room. Because if you had 100,000 kids that reported, just imagine how many kids have not reported violence and bullying in schools. This is a big problem. And the biggest thing one of the fathers said earlier is about parents being accountable. And I mentioned that at the last one. Parents have to be accountable. These are your kids. We don't just birth them and let them run wild. They're not pets. They're not animals. They are children. We have to develop them and nurture them. And we're losing that. So one of the greatest things we have to do is meet them where they are and have these conversations.
Do you think there's been a loss of accountability with parents as, just take your career as a pastor, talking with families, talking with parents, talking with kids. Have you seen that accountability erode over the years?
Absolutely. I remember when I was in school, I graduated high school in '97, but when I was in elementary school, I had a problem with another student. The principal had me, the student, and our parents come in and have a conference and talk about what was going on. They don't do that now because they say, oh, to bring conflict. No, it won't. It'll bring awareness with parents. And you want parents to be aware of what's going on. There's a woman here tonight from the Black Mothers Forum, and she goes in schools all the time. And this stuff is rampant, where things happen and parents don't really know. And by the time a parent finds out, it's when police are involved or it's become way larger than an initial bullying situation. So yes, we have gotten away from that.
And Alyssa, you know, you have to be careful as an educator in the way you speak to parents in today's world. You can't just lay it all on the line. You have to talk with sensitivity now, whereas maybe 15 or 20 years ago, you could be a little more forceful. And the same with the way you talk to students. Is it tougher now?
I think the reality is that we're all humans that deserve dignity. And so I think that you can have honest, direct conversations that are respectful and dignified. But sure, some people can take offense. But I think that what we try to do in our district is really talk about getting to the bottom of what is really going on. Fancy term is root cause analysis, but really it's like, what's going on here? You know, what does the student need? What does the family need? And they're the source of information. So I think that, yes, it can be complicated in today's world because people are on edge. There's a lot of stress and anxiety, but we have to be honest and have real conversations.
Well, it sounds hopeful, the things that you all are saying. So hopefully we can keep our kids a little bit safer after this discussion. We want to thank you guys for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and when we come back, we'll take some questions from the audience. Keep it right here.
Welcome back to our special 12 News Town Hall on teen violence. This is the second town hall we have had trying to address this situation, and I want to introduce our last panel of experts. First of all, Geronda Montagna, a prevention specialist from Tempe Union High School District. Thank you for being here with us. We appreciate it. Also, Bishop Holt, who was with us in our East Valley Teen Violence Town Hall, and Shannon Hayes, from a grassroots organization called Black Mothers Forum. Good to see all of you.
First, we're going to start with a question from our audience. We'll send it over to 12 News journalist Colleen Sikora. Colleen, who do you have?
This is Mary Che Adria. You heard from her mom, Paula Jordan, earlier, and you have a question about how kids are feeling safe at school and how to make them feel safer.
Yes, when we look at the 2022 Youth Survey of Arizona, we see that almost a quarter of students have chosen to not go to school in the last year due to not feeling safe at school. How can we increase awareness and make this a real conversation that we're having as a community?
Thank you.
All right, Geronda, did you hear her question? How do we make kids feel safe? A lot of them are not going to school. That's what the statistics show.
And actually, nationally, the statistic shows about 160,000 miss school every day nationwide because of some form of bullying, and that's across K-12. One of the things that we don't see here tonight on the panel are youth talking and youth telling us why. What's going on with them. We understand that statistics also tell us that students are more stressed. They're dealing with more anxiety. And I'm a coach and I'm a professional preventionist, and I see it on both ends. I see the aftermath of what happens when a kid walks away from school feeling disheveled, feeling like their peers are harassing them or their peers are ridiculing them. And at the end of the day, as individual coaches, we can chat with those students, but we should be having those conversations during the school day, and it should be intentional to find out from kids directly what they need.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, and I was thinking, what kind of tools should we be talking to our kids about? Because I'm thinking about my girls who might tell me one day, oh, such and such was being bullied at school. And I say, well, what did you do? Did you help? Did you do something? And, you know, I get a variety of answers. Sometimes it's like, oh, I told the teacher. And sometimes it's like, well, nothing. You know, we didn't really say anything. But should we be talking to our kids about how they can help?
You know, we've taught kids for a long time the golden rules, and maybe one of the golden rules we haven't emphasized enough is if you speak up and say something, things stop.
Yes.
And so if we're telling them that at young ages, and they just continue that through middle school and high school, we know that they're going to be self-conscious in middle school, but we're in the background coaching them. Little kids have no problem speaking up. But at some point, we lose that nerve, and we also lose those coaches in the background saying, here are the golden rules. So that's my strong suggestion as a preventionist. We have to keep doing that through those teen years.
Bishop Holt, you were in a gang yourself when you were a young man.
It's true, and the things I looked at was the communication, as my colleague says. When it falls off, and that interaction with those and adults that we trusted, it falls off, we go out seeking that approval from our peers. our peers may be older, or they may be ones that we look up to because we see a boldness and a bravery that is actually hidden behind fear. But it looks good, so therefore we gravitate toward that. So a lot of times when we teach our kids that there is a difference, I saw something today that I really warmed my heart, and I have to give the Assistant Chief of Police of Phoenix a grand clap. I saw him interact with a young man, and I saw that young man interact back. And that was the difference that I saw from differences when we used to say, don't talk to the police because the police ain't doing nothing but trying to bust your head. That interaction was a warming action, which says that there is a chance and there is a possibility because there's a trust, there's a bond, there is a relationship, and that's something our kids don't have. We don't see that relationship.
Shannon, the Black Mothers Forum was started in 2016. Tell us about the work that you all do.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, a lot of work, right?
But we do serve the community in a sense that we are there to support the children who are in the space, the educators in the space as well, and the families. What we're seeing is that when students don't have a voice, when they don't have a safe space, then that's where the conflict arises, the confusion. So a lot of the work that we have done outside of advocating for families and students who are in crisis within the school districts is be in the schools. We actually at Betty Fairfax High School, right before COVID, we spent time, they created space for us. We had an office there where students could come and just be. If there was conflict, we were there to liaison with them, to help them to process. They didn't know who we were. They just saw Black mothers on campus, and they knew they were safe. They could go there. And the same was for the educators in the space. I think a lot of what's happening now, though, is that no one is having the full conversation. I think it's been voiced several times here that we need to have the children at the table. We need to have the parents at the table, and we need to have the educators at the table. There's too much speaking to one and not the other, and not bringing everyone into community. We need to have more community conversations. That's some of the work that we do so that we can bring the families together so they know what's going on with their students.
And Joranda, it is very telling, and you said it, that here we have our second forum on teen violence. We did one in the East Valley, now we're doing it here in South Phoenix tonight. And we have not had teens RSVPing to show up and say, let me speak, let me talk. Is that fear, or is it something else?
I don't think it has anything to do with the teens. I think it's sort of adult speak, where adults see a problem, recognize it, and will jump to do something with that problem in an effort to protect teens. Without the teens' inclusion, it happens at home. I want to protect you. I don't want anything bad to happen to you, so you just can't go. Without understanding why they want to go, who they're going to go with. And so the same thing happens in community forums. We're going to protect you. We don't need to hear anything from you. We just need you to be protected. So I don't think it's fear on their part. I think it's intention and protection on our part.
All right, Joranda, we want to go now to our audience. Colleen Sikora is standing by with someone who has a question. Colleen?
Yeah. And we actually have a teen here who wants
wow.
to ask a question.
Good for you.
He deserves that round of applause. This is Christian. He's 16. You're from Phoenix. Tell us about your question.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask, with everything we've been talking about today, I just wanted to speak on the teens who aren't really accounted for. If there's a wide spectrum, I just want to ask about the teens who aren't accounted for in different neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods, maybe coming from the ghetto, or just everyone who isn't accounted for. There's not enough speaking on who really gets to say who is available for the resources. And I know that sounds a little confusing, but it's just not enough resources are available for everybody, and not everybody is always going to be accounted for. But it's up to you guys, obviously, to say, it's up to you guys to be there for your teen. And I know my mom is too, so.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What is the toughest thing about being a teen for you?
I would say it's a lot of expectations to live to, expectations to live up to.
Expectations from your friends, from your family?
Just everybody. I mean, even being here right now, I mean, I know people are expecting me to be like really nervous, and I am, but.
You don't come across that way.
You don't seem nervous at all. I do have a question. We've talked a lot about social media. How does that factor in terms of what Mark is talking about, you know, what is it like? I mean, is social media, is it the problem that a lot of the experts seem to say it is for you?
Well, you know, I'm on social media a lot during the day, and so it definitely is just how much and how exposed you are to it, and that does lead back to the parents. So,
you feel like parents aren't monitoring it enough?
Not enough these days, no. So, but it does go back to the kid as well, because the kid always is going to be in control of their own emotions, their own feelings. And I know when I want to like be upset about something, I go and sit with my mom, talk to her about it, and it's just really talking to your parents. Like, your parents are your number one resource, and I feel like not enough teens, especially now, use their parents as resources.
Yeah, that's Durando, what you were saying.
It's not easy, is it?
So I'd like to speak to that real quick. I appreciate you doing that, because that's what we try to do with our youth in the NAACP. We really try to give you your voice. It's your voice. We want you to come out. We want you to talk. We want you to stand and find what it is that makes you who you are. And a lot of times our parents, like my colleague said, that we protect you from things we don't really understand, but you guys actually understand more and see more, and you're exposed to more. So when you talk about those groups that are not being taken care of, but they're not getting the resources, believe it or not, there are tons of resources, tons of organizations out there. But it's also saying that, how do we reach you better? Because you would say, well, who is the NAACP? What is the NAACP? All I can say is, come talk to me and let me tell you, and then figure it out, is that something you want to do? Because I'm going to offer you a large scale of understanding that may say, you know what, I want to try that out just because I don't believe you. Because I respect you enough to let you ask the question, and I also respect me enough to say, I don't have that answer, but I can help you find it. And that's the thing. It's the community. It's the reaching out. It's the letting you speak and stand there and be brave enough to say, even though I'm a little nervous, I still have a voice. And that's what I love. Thank you.
Proud of you.
I love that. Thank you.
Shannon, in the Black Mothers Forum, you talk to a lot of black moms, obviously, and you try to help children of color. What's the toughest thing for a mother today, regardless of their skin color?
Well, I can only speak for myself as a black mother, but I think motherhood itself is just a challenge. I have 3 children, 2 are adults, 1 is in high school. I have to parent each of them differently, and I'm doing it on my own. I can only speak to my experience. It's a challenge. You need the supports, you need the community, the whole village. I need my people at school. I need my mamas at Black Mothers Forum. I need my brothers at NAACP. Whoever is available, I think that's the number one thing that mothers don't have, is full support and understanding that we're dealing with a lot. We might not always be able to vocalize it, but because we kind of just make things happen.
Yeah. Duranda, some quick tips for parents to just open the conversation. I have a 14-year-old, and you know they pull back a little bit. You know, they're not as forthcoming as they were when they were children. So how do you open that conversation once again?
Well, the number one thing to do tonight is use this as an opportunity. This conversation was had tonight, so go straight home and start a conversation with your child.
Okay.
What is happening with violence? What do you know? Are you afraid at school? Are your friends afraid? Have you been harassed? Whatever that looks like or sounds like that you think might be violence, or just get your kids to teach you what it looks like to be a teen right now when it comes to violence.
Yeah. Bishop, any closing words?
Stay strong, stay focused, and remember, we are the village, and we are here to take care of each other.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. And I do want to mention that we are already preparing for our next town hall. Our next one is going to be for a Spanish-speaking audience only. So on May 26th at 6 o'clock, 12 News will be hosting an all-Spanish panel at Carl Hayden Community High School, so we hope that you will join us.
And for the parents who've lost children, that wound may never heal, but hopefully with what we're doing here and these great people offering their insight, we can take some small steps to solving this problem. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you back tonight on 12 News at 10.